The continued intergenerational transformation of the National Democratic Congress, a process which started with the election of its new political leader last year, came in for much scrutiny and fanfare last week in the historic parish of St. Patrick. Grenadians on both sides of the political spectrum ought to be proud that the main opposition party is attempting to mount a viable alternative to the current administration, especially as the next election will be a referendum on the leader of the country. The new NDC slate has to be a winning formula for the health of the very young democratic process in Grenada, but a slate, except for a few of its candidates, that has never been tested at the polls. But of course, all politicians start somewhere, unlike the TGM, which hasn't even managed to make it out of the gate, as well as the anachronistic Grenada United Labour Party, who are attempting to be relevant to a generation of Grenadians that barely know much about their rich yet complicated history. Political parties, however, are essential institutions of democracy. By competing in elections and serving people, parties offer citizens a choice in governance, and while in opposition, they can hold governments accountable to the extent that the Westminster system of democracy allows them to. In the last 8 years, the current administration has not had a serious constitutional check on governance, and we must all root for that to change, regardless of which side you support. When citizens join political parties, volunteer their time, donate money, and vote for their leaders, they are exercising their basic constitutional rights to so do. Last week, several young people took that very leap of constitutional faith, and in so doing, secured their place in Grenadian history, and that must be celebrated. The life of public service is hard, and those who choose to serve people in this capacity do so at great sacrifice. But while we must celebrate these accomplishments, I couldn't help but notice the perennial issue we have in Grenada with respect to the nature and tenor of public discourse that is played out on social media and in the local press. Some overly zealous party sympathizers, and note I say some overly zealous party sympathizers, newcomers, and long-standing surrogates of the NDC, instead of examining the merits of the issues raised by people such as Cassandra Mitchell, Michael Batiste, and independent journalist Callistra Farrier, emphasis here on independent, have gone on the offensive to defend their partisan turf. In some respects, these partisans are engaging in the same conduct they accuse their opponents of the NNP of practicing. If our public discourse is one that engages in whataboutism and personal attacks, then it is hard to see how we can raise the quality of civic discourse in our society, as my former teacher, now NDC Deacon Mitchell, has called for since his election. For the avoidance of doubt, the issues raised by Farrier et al. Would be weaponized by the ruling party in the lead-up to the next election. In other words, Cassandra, Michael, and Callistra are the least of your worries. We should, on the other hand, be grateful that these issues are being raised and ventilated in the first place, as it is essential to the health of the democratic process. Dissent is also critical in functioning democracies. If a country has to grow in a holistic manner, where not only the economic rights, but also the constitutional rights of the citizen are to be protected, then dissent and disagreement has to be permitted, and in fact, should be encouraged. It is only if there is discussion, dispassionate disagreement, and critical dialogue that we can arrive at better ways of governing our society.